To the men and women of our military, along with America's first responder community of firefighters, law enforcement officers, the EMTs, doctors, nurses, and their families. Life is about honor, duty, and above all else, selfless sacrifice. But for some of our service members, that sacrifice has come at a cost. A cost far greater than they should ever have to make. Whether it's an injury obtained in the line of duty or fallout from their experiences in the field, more often than not, this takes an incredible toll on both their bodies and their brains, leading to more than 20 military veterans and first responder suicides per day in America. As a country, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing enough to help those who've helped us? And can we do more? The Life Aid Research Institute has set out to answer just that. By focusing on peer support, coupled with a data-driven whole health approach, and combining it with rigorous evidence-based research, they are challenging the status quo and testing the limits of integrative mental health treatments with an innovative new approach to technology and functional medicine treatments that focus on healing the source of the issue, brain injury, instead of simply treating the symptoms of mental health. Life Aid is inspiring an entire community to think about and approach this challenge in a new way before time runs out. There is no single solution on the long road to recovery for our service members, and the first step is always the most difficult. But today, we step forward. This is Life Aid, a story of hope.
So I have all these relics just sitting here that have just sit here for years because he can't do it and I can't do it. So they just sit there, kind of like a reminder that those are the plans we had. He had a boat that he was restoring. We had a camper that we were working on, and we used to go camping with the kids. We had a good life. We did everything together. We did everything together. And then, things just changed in an instant. I often say, and I've said this before, that I felt like we fell off the planet. I mean, everything stopped. Umberto always had a desire in his heart to give back to his community, and he thought about the military actually, and then decided to be a North Carolina State Highway Patrol officer, and he loved his job. We were high school sweethearts. The first time I saw him, I just knew he was it, and we've been married 30 years. We have 3 beautiful children. They're grown. We're empty nesters now. On November 23rd, 2009, I had gone into work and I got a phone call saying that he had been in an accident. He was on the interstate and he was rear-ended at 75 miles an hour. The impact and the spin caused a severe traumatic brain injury. And the man that left that day did not come home.
My name is Umberto Reina. I am a survivor of North Carolina State Highway Patrol. I had a hard time to all different stuff, and with this, my head, whatever it's doing there, I cannot get comfortable. It's just, I had to fight all the time. I don't know what happy is anymore. That's not told me.
What do you think about when you look at this guy smiling in that photo?
I don't know, somebody else, I guess.
But it's not, it's you.
Huh?
It's you though.
I was. No anymore.
I miss him. I miss him.
For first responders like Humberto, life has not been easy for him or his family since he was injured in the line of duty, and he's not alone in his struggle.
I think the mindset of a person that joins the military has to be courageous and brave, because you're putting your life in jeopardy for your country. My name is Edwin Williams, better known as Paco. I was supply and infantry. I think about it every day about Iraq and the stuff I've been through. Right after high school, I decided to go into the military. It was like a big start over and meeting new people. Once everybody got together, it was like, okay, we're family now, and we just stuck together for the time we were there. We was going on a mission, and we dropped some people off. When my friend that was in front of me swerved to miss something else, I ran into explosive device. Just losing a friend that was always talking to me and keeping me in check to come home. So that was probably the hardest part. I lost probably about, I want to say 8 good friends over there. That was my family. And until I came back, I never thought about injuring myself. But I wanted like the flashbacks of what I did, I wanted it to be over. It's hard to differentiate from being a soldier and then a killer. And then come back and then everybody wants you to be human. I tried to be that old person, but I don't feel like I'm human no more. I went from being happy, loving, to always mad. Everything sets me off. Not able to look at certain things on TV, not to be able to play with my son a certain way. I didn't want to be around nobody. I was trying to block everything that I seen. My supervisor was a retired first sergeant. We went and did a patrol, and he said, I think you got PTSD. Now, I didn't know what it was. He told me to go get checked out. When they went through all my medical records, they was like, you know, you really have traumatic brain injury. And I was like, didn't know that. So a lot of stuff I didn't know I had, and I was just floating around. We don't have that support that we need to help us get through that push, because it's like when we get out, they don't give us no counseling. It's basically throwing us out to the wolves. Military teaches you not to let your feelings out. It's like a secret to tell what you're dealing with. So the quick fix is, since nobody wants to hear it, I'm just gonna end myself.
I know I was injured doing my job, but nobody cares. Now even the highway patrol now. They throw me to the ditch, and I'm alone. Maybe one day I come out.
What the misconception is, I think, across the country is that when a law enforcement officer is injured in the line of duty, they're going to get the best care possible, and they're going to be taken care of for the rest of their life, and that is not what happens. They get thrown into a workers' compensation system that cares nothing about them as a human being. I want to say he was only in the hospital for 3 days the first time, and they were just continually trying to throw him out. And he came home. He couldn't be in the room with anybody. He was sitting in the dark. He wasn't talking. He was moving extremely slow. You couldn't touch him. Our daughter, who was his lap child, could no longer even get near him. I knew something was terribly wrong with him. He was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, cognitive deficits, PTSD, severe anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, complete personality change, super-sensitive hearing, super-sensitive smell. You see him wearing the headset. We actually got that only through some engineering students from Colorado so that he would be able to tolerate the noise a little better. You hear on TV that they have non-life-threatening injuries. And yes, they are alive, but they're not the people that they used to be. And they have to rebuild new lives from the beginning. When a catastrophically injured officer lives in this country, there's no support to help them rebuild new lives. And then you have these family units that are dissolving because it's such a stressful time on the entire family. If we could get help, their lives could be better. What if he could have a day of peace? I mean, just a day of peace of mind. What would that do for him?
Visit lifeaidhope.org/storyofhope to donate now.
As one of the world's largest healthcare technology companies, Cerner believes we have a moral responsibility to help solve some of the nation's most pressing healthcare challenges, especially suicide. Our clients, the Department of Defense and Department of Veterans Affairs, are on the front lines combating suicide each and every day. And though they've made significant progress, they can't solve this problem alone. No one can. We lose about 20 veterans and service members a day to suicide. More military veterans and first responders die by suicide than in the line of duty. This is unacceptable. The status quo clearly isn't enough. The Life Aid Initiative plays a critical role in reducing suicide and engaging veterans and first responders before they are in crisis. By bringing together these two communities, their families and caregivers, Life Aid is reforging the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood, often lost after leaving active duty. Focusing on a data-driven whole health approach, Life Aid is testing non-traditional and innovative treatments accompanied by rigorous evidence-based research we hope will reduce suicide. There is no single solution. We need a variety of research-backed options. One of the biggest hurdles we face is this stigma that has discouraged veterans and first responders from seeking the mental health care services they have earned. Mental health is healthcare, and we have to start treating it that way. Life Aid is providing a platform to engage in a national conversation aimed at eradicating this stigma and encouraging others to connect to this community of support. Cerner is proud to join with Life Aid in their efforts, and we call on other companies, organizations, and community partners to stand with us. Together, we can make a lasting impact.
I'm from New York City, New York, and proud to be so. And I became a fireman because my mom was saved from a fire, so it's something I always wanted to do. It's the best job in the world, to serve and to feel like you're giving back on a daily basis. I was working the morning of September 11th. The plane struck the towers and we all queued up to go in, and guys that you were talking to just an hour or so before didn't make it. Just amazing human beings that, sacrificed their lives to rescue people. To lose people that you love and respect, and know that their loved ones are suffering without them is, you can imagine what it feels like. It's pretty overwhelming. A lot of survivor guilt. Why you made it and why they didn't. A couple of my colleagues were so distraught, they unfortunately decided not to go on. And then on a weekly basis, we continue to suffer losses from toxic exposure that occurred that day. We just lost another amazing guy last week to 9/11 illness. So it just keeps on going. Doctors and scientists studied the aftermath of what we were exposed to and all of the carcinogens that were pulverized into like a very small powdery substance that was kind of super infused into everybody and in the air. For me, it was my lungs mostly. If I'm exposed to cigarette smoke or anything like that, my lungs will start seizing. I'll feel like I can't breathe. Behaviorally, you learn about post-traumatic stress from the doctors. It kind of helps explain a lot of the feelings that you go through. You break your arm, you put a cast on, but it's hard to see the internal injuries.
The brain is incredibly complex. It's really an electrochemical organ that takes a lot of the blood flow in your body to function, and different kinds of injuries can affect that brain physiology, that structure and function.
And this can cascade into a lot of other somatic complaints. They have difficulty sleeping, they have pain, they have depression, and that does not allow them to function at their normal capacity.
A medical doc gives medicines. They're not always looking for root cause, they're treating the symptom. And one of the things we try to do here is treat the underlying cause of the symptoms.
You know, the word heal is difficult to say, but really what we're doing is retraining the brain. Think of it as we're going down the highway, and we're going 90 miles an hour because the brain wants to function and be as efficient as it can in its functioning. And all of a sudden you come up and a bridge is out. What's the first thing you do? You hit your GPS. GPS takes you out and around it, and you get to the other side, and boom, you're back doing 90. The second day, you come along, well, I'll use my GPS again. You go out around it. After the third day, going to work, that bridge is still out. Now you know the back pattern that goes out and around it, and you do it. So when we retrain the brain that the path is back open, now the brain is running efficient again, and all this side pattern that was going on as far as where the injury was could be causing the symptoms of PTSD, traumatic brain injury. So now we got the bridge open, and all of a sudden people are going, oh, my depression is better, my anxiety is better, and things of that nature. So we don't necessarily look at depression, we look at, okay, what do we got to fix to get it working right?
There is a lot of limitations in terms of what we can provide them in terms of medical therapy to deal with the kinds of dysfunctions that they're faced with. So that's where it's time to just open up the toolbox.
My name is John Warden, and I started a suicide prevention program for first responders, military veterans, and their families to improve health and resilience using peer support, technology, functional medicine, and community activation to improve outcomes. Suicide has risen steadily every year in the top 10 leading causes of death. It's the number 2 cause of death for those between 15 and 25. And the reason that people lose hope is that they can't get past a barrier. There's just not an alternative program available that looks at the root causes of suicide, particularly with how brain injury affects mental and physical and emotional health of people.
What first drew me into Life Aid was the love. For them to send me to California to get a brain scan so I could prove to my doctor that I have a strong traumatic brain injury.
They had some scans done of my brain, and they pointed out exactly where it is and what it does.
I actually did not sleep for days when I found out that we were going to get to have the scans, because that's not something we could get on our own. But to be able to actually see the scans was a validation.
Because they look at me and say, oh, he doesn't have traumatic brain injury. The person that had traumatic brain injury has a scar on his head.
We have people from Special Forces who are saying, I'm not right. Why am I not right? And the thing is that most of the docs just blow them off, and they don't understand what they've actually been through.
Whether it's trauma, toxic exposure, PTSD, all of these things can affect people in a different way. It's a little bit hard to study, a little bit hard to pinpoint.
Every injury in the body can heal. So what we want to do is heal the brain and look at how do you do that using technology that doesn't exist yet, or diet. It could be exercise. It could be things like CBD or cannabis. It could be hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Let's bring everything that is out there and let's just put it on the table, and let's shine the light of rigorous scientific methodology to these interventions and see which ones work.
We have this opportunity to do the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which we would never have. That's not something we could ever get on our own. We come 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And let's see, we got up at 4 a.m., left at 5, drove about an hour and a half to get here. And then we're here an hour, maybe an hour and 15, 20 minutes, and then an hour and a half back. I'm a professional driver, for sure. I do a lot of miles. So put him in the chamber, give him a chance to recover, get some benefit. Yeah.
When you give a patient hyperbaric oxygen, it allows oxygen to go to parts of the brain that are normally not oxygenated when they have this traumatic brain injury.
A lot of what we know comes from these folks that are treating. It's subjective, but 90 to 100% of them within about 10 treatments will start to report an increase in clarity of thinking. They're sleeping much better. Consequently, those two things lend to much less depression.
They usually get between 40 and 60 treatments.
I did 40 treatments, and it really helped physically and mentally. When I first started, I was always in pain, had a lot of headaches. Once I started doing it, my eyesight getting clearer, my breathing getting better, my bones getting stronger. If I have a migraine, probably it's like 2 minutes and it's gone.
What I said to the doctors when we finally got him back, I said, what are we going to do with him for the rest of his life? I mean, basically, he was standing up against a wall. With 15 days of the hyperbaric therapy, he was sitting in the living room and he said, hey there. I just took a double take because he said, hey there. And I thought, wow, maybe it seems to be small. It's huge for the family.
How do you show quantitatively, without question, how you can improve someone's brain health and how that correlates to physical, mental, emotional health, and do it objectively so that all these traditional behavioral health people don't tell you that what you're doing is dumb?
My first instinct is to be pretty skeptical. My second instinct is to be open-minded because you don't know what you don't know. And I think that it's just as irrational to be skeptical for no reason as it is to be accepting for no good reason.
Once I started seeing, why is it working? I don't understand. And then we realized it was tissue injury. Emotional stress is not tissue damage. So somebody who has had emotional trauma is not going to get better with hyperbarics. But our guys that have had repetitive head injuries, concussions from the time they were in high school, now we can do something. But people say they aren't reliable and things like that. But that's the only way we can show anything except individual patient testimonies and family testimonies. They start sleeping better. Some of them say, I'm dreaming for the first time in years since my head injury. When you see these guys actually improve, that's what made a believer out of me.
This program is brought to you in part by Cerner.
For a while, I thought PTSD was just an idea, but it consumes you if you allow it. My name is Jose Miranda. Served in the Navy for 6 years. Part of the reason why I enlisted was because of 9/11. My parents are immigrants. They came from Mexico. They gave us a life that they didn't have. So I felt like if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna contribute to keeping the country safe. When I enlisted into the military, the first thing I wanted to do is be a SEAL sniper. I qualified to go, but I never went. I got injured in October 19 of 2004. I got run over by a jet on the flight deck of a carrier, and that's when, literally, you could say my dreams were crushed. So they took me to medical, they cut off my gear, they did what they needed to do, and they flew me to Balboa. And I wake up 4 days later, completely paralyzed from the waist down. By the time I had my final surgery, I ended up with a surgery count of 46 surgeries with 3 amputations. I got out and I went straight to work. So I didn't have that transition problem. And then 2 years after is when my PTSD finally flared out to the fullest. PTSD, you kind of want to refuse sometimes that you have it, just because you know what the aftermath is like. No, that ain't gonna be me. I'm still going to the gym, I'm still working out, I had a job. That's not me. It wasn't denial, but it's okay, if I do have it, it's not as severe as someone else's PTSD. And when I lost the job, that's when the confidence went down, my self-esteem went down. I tried killing myself twice. One, I chambered around, I just couldn't pull the trigger. The other one is I took my a month prescription of meds in 2 days. We're trained to adapt and overcome and, defeat the enemy. You're not trained to understand depression. You're definitely not trained to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to feel hurt, to go request for help. We're not trained for that.
Living with somebody that takes a lot of medication, it's kind of like living with an alcoholic. Like, he says things that he doesn't mean, but it's like he doesn't remember saying them. He was just a different Jose. He's had over 100 prescriptions in the past 10 plus years. It wasn't fixing him, it was making him worse.
Most of the patients that we see that are in the military have been through extensive efforts at rehabilitation. They've been on various drugs, they've been through therapy, and all of these things have not gotten them where they need to be.
I was taking about 12 different meds, and I knew if I kept feeling like a zombie, I wasn't gonna make it. So I said I had to find something that was a lot better than what I'm doing.
And then breathing deeply, belly, ribs, chest. Allow the collarbones to expand wide.
A lot of what we have considered to be the issues related to healing have been in the separation of self.
Exhale all the way out. Begin to draw the navel in towards
Yoga is simply breath and movement. The breath is the most important element of the human healing experience because of the connection between the physical body and the nervous system and this self-regulation component that happens. It has the most research and is now the largest prescribed modality. Anyone can do it, and the contraindications are literally none. We're more than a body, and we're more than a soldier, or more than a warrior, and breath and yoga offers, getting back to that human component.
The breathing, the stretching, the way I feel after, no pain, no meds. My migraines don't last as long. It changed my depression completely. Mentally and physically, I felt I could control myself a lot better.
We know that the work has been effective when they start rolling out the mat for someone else and they're staying after class and helping to support another veteran.
I was looking for other alternatives other than medication, and so I started researching. I came here, went through about 2 sessions of yoga. I met Paco. Knowing that there are other people like me, it just makes it that more comforting.
So come on in here. So this is the float suite.
Relaxation is not always easy, especially after a post-traumatic stress. Flotation, the zero gravity, actually activates parasympathetic nervous system for you, so it's an override. It's 1,000 pounds of salt in 200 gallons of water. Everyone almost immediately goes to pain-free as soon as they are held in that weightlessness.
I feel rejuvenated. I feel relaxed, very relaxed. It almost feels like I can just let everything out and just kind of float there and just not have to worry about anything.
The sensory overload that we experience is very taxing to the nervous system, and it challenges all the functions of the body. One of the most commonly medicated problems that we have in the world today is sleep, and sleep is the precursor to all of this organic ability to heal.
It helps with my sleep big time. I don't take any more medication. My kids are firsthand. They told me, they said, "Dad, you've changed a lot just in the past 6 months."
Text HOPE to 844-902-2022 to donate now.
One of the issues that I have with talk therapy is the number of therapies and number of therapists and the subjective opinion of an individual. If you have a heart attack, do I ask you questions? No, we measure your heart. I'm just gonna measure your brain. We have a device called the Scorpion chair. It looks like a gaming chair. And the person sits in it, the screen wraps around you. It has, lights, and it does all the modalities. What we're doing is taking science and technology and training it at a very accelerated pace without the subjectivity of the individual trying to guide it, or the process or the procedure that's getting it there. We're letting the brain heal itself. It works primarily on the default mode network. It takes the amygdala and brings it back to a lower level, so your fear factors and things are being pushed into long-term memory. So you deal with your crisis. On average, you see the changes starting at 10 sessions. On that laptop right now is one of our brain tuners is logging into the system and actually looking at Sebi's brain live. So what we're going to do is impedance match the sensors to what is going on with Sebi, so then we can conduct neurofeedback training after that. What we do is, you think of it like when you're studying for a test and you're cramming, your brain is just saturated and you hit that point. What we do is we try to push the brain almost to that. So some people react where they're heightened. They're like, whew. Other people are like, oh my God, I just studied for 15 hours, and they're exhausted. The brain starts searching, so what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I don't like the screen shrinking. And then all of a sudden, it hits it, and the software tells it, okay, put the screen back up. Then it goes back down, and then the brain gets it and goes, oh, that's what you want me to do, and forces it up. We're basically creating a workout program for the brain.
All right, so here's your real-time brain waves. Now, could I have you blink a few times in succession for me?
Yes.
Okay, that looks good.
We can actually see concussive events or PTSD by pattern recognition that can go back 40 years, and we can see it. And then we can also put a protocol together that can help them. So with Sebi, what we did is a combination of multiple modalities. Right now, we're actually putting a unit in his home that can travel with him anywhere so that we can keep his treatments going. And we're seeing a significant difference in his pattern recognition and his memory.
I've seen a difference in myself. Most importantly, my children have seen a difference in me. To go from a state of treating symptoms instead of a cause and feeling a little bit hopeless to a place where, I'm going to be proactive and I'm going to try and rectify it a little bit. I owe it to myself and to people around me to do that.
Gold medal. This is seniors. Seniors golf.
The senior games.
This here? Swimming.
Veterans have figured out that adaptive sports is very therapeutic. But law enforcement discovered there was nothing in the country for them, so his doctors had to prescribe his care. And so they have actually prescribed adaptive sports for him.
My injury in my head, it's just all over. So when I go golf, that give me from 1 minute to another one. Just give me a little break. And same when I'm running, I bring my way of thinking to actually what I do and run and go off. And I do as much as I can.
He has a lot of injury, but you have to rebuild on what you have left. And so what he had left was his athletic ability.
I still had a hard time to be around, but when I go to the road and a bike, it's changed. Sports is very therapeutic, and when I ride, it's just me and the bike.
At the time he was injured, we'd been married 20 years. He comes home and we can't even touch him. 4.5 years later, after 3 days of riding, he put his arm around my shoulder, and I said, this is it. This is it. I can't tell you, how exciting that was, because he's in there. He's in there somewhere. This is all we do. So we do the wine, we golf, and he has his bike that he rides here at home, and I will just say this, my husband was a long way gone. He was a long way gone when he came home from that accident. And it's been a long way to get him back, and it's just been baby steps the whole way with persistence. Here we are 10.5 years later, and he's, doing a lot of things that he couldn't do before.
It's close enough.
It's been 10 years, and I'm still trying to get back on the planet. As a country, we have enough resources that we can help the injured, and we really do need the support.
Humberto has had a tough time, and they were searching for answers, and the idea that he thought that cycling could help him, and then just watch year after year how much different he becomes. It's been 6 months maybe since I last saw him, and we were out in the trails today, and he's like, "Hey, John, can we fix my back wheel? It's like sliding all over the place." And I went up to Ken and go, he's initiating conversations. He's never done that before. Now that we're able to adapt and provide to them the technology with the hyperbaric therapy and the brain mapping, so now you see that smile because he's healthier and he's happier.
These services are allowing us to have new hope, new tools, new ways to beat this, because I know my husband. If anybody could come back from injury, he could. But if we don't have the resources, we don't have any hope of doing it. But with help, we can.
This program is brought to you in part by Cerner.
Particularly when it comes to first responders and military, we're fix-it kind of people. And so when we see something wrong, we dash in there with our superpowers and we try to fix it. And we think with our own personal strength, we can really make that happen. Sooner or later, we discover that only goes so far.
He was just spiritually not there, angry at God, angry at anything.
What faith does is drag us out of ourselves and our own thoughts that we can do it all on our own, to something that's bigger than ourselves. That's one of the reasons why we joined the way we did. We realized there was more to what we can do than just us as individuals. Well, the same is true with life. The point of faith is really to look inward and say, what makes life important to me? Who makes life important to me? And who is alongside me to help me write my story? It gives us a reason to keep going, and that's hope.
That whole idea of finding hope and purpose together is really what we do.
The exciting thing about Life Aid is that John has put his finger on this idea that we need a community, we need to be able to support each other.
We're having breakfast one day, and I was like, I think I want to go to church. And then we started going, and that's where the healing really happened.
As we can scale and be able to get our hope communities built, we can service hundreds of thousands of people. You start creating that network.
As we build each other up and we continue to throw these little lifelines out to people, you can move forward.
Seeing Jose being Jose, it's been a long process.
I spent so much time in life being angry at God versus redirecting my question in the form of, why am I still here? What use do you have for me? And then that's when I was introduced to hand cycling. Within 4, 5, 6 months, I do my first challenge ride from Chicago to Detroit. And that's when I met John. When I started getting involved, it gave me a confidence that, like, 2 legs aren't required to live life.
I think any effort that builds up the whole person is worth getting behind. John is taking this from a holistic perspective. It isn't just a matter of getting somebody on a bicycle and telling them, look, there are no limitations. It's more than that. We need a community. We need to be able to support each other. We need a purpose. We need meaning. All of those things are integral to his understanding of the whole person.
The group cycling part, by far, is the thing that brings the group together the best. It changes the dynamic of the group. From yesterday to today, there'll be a transformation, and it's because of what we're about to do. Find a bike.
Oh, that's good.
Find a bike.
We're out here supporting each other and just taking care of one another, riding our bikes.
If you have a group of people who are complete strangers for the most part, who are going to be now brought together and put into an environment that is unnatural for them previously. A lot of times you'll share stuff with your friends that you don't share with your family. your spouse and your kids, you want to shelter them from that real world experience. But by keeping it inside, it eats you alive. You need to be able to talk about it, but you need to be able to talk to somebody that understands it, but won't be adversely affected by it. We're gonna get a big group picture before we start. And so peer support, at the essence, that's what we are.
When I met John in Life Aid, I didn't want to talk to nobody. And he was like, I want you to speak on your problem tonight at dinner. I never told nobody my story. My wife, nobody knew about my story. So I thought about it, I said, you know what, I'm gonna tell it. And after I told my story, it felt like a release. That was the first time I had cried in a long time, and everything came out, so I knew right then this was the right place to be with Life Aid.
Of all the folks that we tested, he was probably the most at risk for suicide. So we were able to create an alternative therapy plan for him. We implemented it, and it saw immediate results. So much to the fact that a couple Fridays ago, he told the group, suicide is no longer an option for me. I've been doing this program for 12 years. The suicide rate has gone up for 12 years. What you're doing isn't working. Doing more of it isn't gonna help. We really need to start over again, and massive bureaucracies set themselves up to limit change.
One of our patients needed a scan done, and unfortunately what we ran up into is bureaucracy, and oftentimes that's prohibitive to getting the care. They're not eager to go ahead and pay for a treatment if they don't have proof of its efficacy.
We need to convince our providers that this is something that could work.
And that's why our program is so important, and why it's so successful is because we can turn on a dime and look at things and immediately go, if it's not working, change. If Paco hyperbaric therapy wasn't working, I'd say stop doing that and let's do something else.
As a physician, I kind of feel a little bit desperate that, here that we have this large population of people who are suffering, and we really have a limited repertoire of what we can provide them to help them in their everyday lives. There's a lot of issues with fundraising and the cost of doing this research. So let's get other people involved. Let's bring in people like John. Let's bring in inventors who have new technology to put on the table. Let's be rigorous, and let's apply valid scientific methods to try to understand how these interventions can help our active duty military.
I just want to see less people dying for supporting their country, their state, their city, and for people to help us and to just be a community.
When you're in the military, the only thing that matters is who's on your right and who's on your left. And that's your purpose, is protecting your buddies. You start to lose hope because you don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And so the purpose can be, hey, there's a Life Aid retreat coming up, so I want to do that. Humberto's purpose is I wake up at 5 a.m. because I'm going to drive to the clinic to take hyperbaric therapy because it makes me feel good. And I'm improving, and it improves my relationship with my wife, and it takes a burden off of her. It's just exponentially good.
We're all enthusiastic about these research trials, but we want to proceed in a very careful and cautious way so that we understand whether or not it truly has a long-lasting effect on our patient.
That's what we try to do every day. So many people are suicidal, they have no hope. If you can give them 1 ounce of hope, then it's magic.
I do believe that Life Aid is taking people and making them stronger. Isn't that part of what we do as military or first responders anyway? If somebody goes in first, then there's somebody who's got his back, and then there's somebody who's got that back. We're designed to hold each other up wherever we are in that moment.
I can discuss my struggles with them, and they don't judge me. We're a family.
If you could get people not to feel alone, I think that helps.
Kay and Umberto and I, we've just stuck together. They supported me so much during my time.
We wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for this organization. It gives you support that you don't have otherwise.
Before, I didn't think I had a purpose. Find things like Life Aid to keep going.
This isn't only about the soldiers, it's not only about the first responders, it's about the families. Because if we're not well, they won't be well.
There's a lot of suicide in the country. We cannot continue to yell at the drowning people to save themselves. They can't do it. We need to support them and give them everything they need to rebuild a new life after injury. And we cannot do this alone. We have to have your support. We cannot do it alone.
It's a slippery slope when you fall into despair.
Find something that works that can help you draw out of that.
Hope kind of stabilizes everything.
It enables other people to grow and to become stronger and to be encouraged and to find hope.
No one else is taking the time to help in a very tailored, specific way. John's gonna work his magic. And he's not gonna say no.
Don't give up. Keep going. Keep searching. You deserve it because you're worth more than you know.
Don't turn your back on us, because we're here.
Text HOPE to 844-902-2022 to donate now.